Good evening. It is 5 p.m. and I'm going to go ahead and call this work session to order. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a land acknowledgement work session with the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. So we're going to start with, first order of business is taking roll call. As I say each of the board members' names, please indicate your presence by saying present. Director Song.
Present.
Director Cook.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
Vice President Farah.
Present.
And I'm present. And if I could swing this over to Superintendent Vela to start us with introductions, please.
Thank you, President Markell and members of the board. I want to thank you for this opportunity and thank you for your flexibility today, this evening. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our Associate Superintendent of Learning Supports, Mr. Randy Heath.
Hello, thank you, and I'm excited about tonight's work session. This came from a request last year from the board, and so we're following up on that. And I'm going to introduce our Director of Student and Family Support Services, Sherry Simpson, who works closely with our Native liaison and does this work. So I'm going to hand it over to Sherry now.
All right, well, thank you guys for having me this evening. I'm excited by the board's passion around creation of a land acknowledgement and the work that you're going to embark on with creating a meaningful land acknowledgement for Kent School District. I'd like to introduce our special guest for tonight. We have Rich Summers, and I'm going to hand this over to you, and then you can introduce Willard Bill.
Good evening, I'm Rich Summers. I'm the Native Liaison for Kent School District. Glad to be here. I know I touched on land acknowledgements a little bit in June, but I thought it, better to bring in kind of an expert, and that's what we have in Willard Bill Jr. He's one of my friends, one of my mentors, and he just gives me a lot of guidance in life and in his work. So this is Willard Bill Jr. He's an enrolled Muckleshoot tribal member, and he's the Assistant Director of the Office of Native Education for OSPI.
Well, good evening. Willard Bill Jr. Tidsta, Muckleshoot Obsted. Thanks, Rich. That was a really nice introduction. It's better than I get most places. I start bringing you with me. My hype man. Holy smokes. I'm glad to be here. We were here a few months ago with the Kent Teacher of Colors Network and did some work around that. I know our canoe family is going to be at Daniel Elementary. And so if you see me sprint out right when we're done here, I'm going to see if I can join them to sing a few songs with. So I would like to be with the kids. So I'm glad to be here and support. One thing I just have to make clear at the beginning is I don't, in this role, can't officially represent the tribe. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I can speak as a tribal member, as the former cultural director for almost a decade, a longtime teacher and educator. So I can speak from that level, and I can speak from the OSPI perspective on what we're working on tonight. So if that just makes sense, because I get nervous with that, because if somebody said, well, Muckleshoot said, mm-hmm. and they're like, well, who said it? And then I'm in trouble at home. So, okay, right? We all have a lot of different bosses, okay? Mm-hmm. And so, but that's part of that. It's important, being a dual citizen in this country, is I'm responsible, one, for our state government, who I work for, right? Who we all work for, and then my home government for Muckleshoot. Okay, and the laws and guidance around that. So, but I will make assurances. I know Rich and I, we tried to get official representation as you guys move forward from this. Absolutely. So I've been talking with them at home to get somebody. I think we have a young scholar who'd be perfect to help do this work. So, and so he wasn't available tonight, but we'll just moving that forward to make sure that representation comes and works alongside with you all. So. And that's a good example of that government-to-government relationship. So we can facilitate, but we're kind of really all on the same team here. And so then having that official representation from Muckleshoot, and that's such an important part of this process. So, yeah, hopefully that rambling made sense.
It did.
Yeah.
All right, well, as we're going tonight, we want you guys to feel free to ask questions as we're going through the presentation. Willard Bill, he's going to talk a little bit about the history, and so as he's talking about history this evening, feel free to interject with questions as we're going through, and questions regarding how to write a land acknowledgement. So I want to provide just a little background first. Last spring, there was a request from the board around creating a more meaningful land acknowledgement. So there's a land acknowledgement that's read at the beginning of every board meeting, and what we heard from our board last year is that it didn't feel meaningful to the board. And so this work session is the beginning of a process in order to create something that has meaning to you as you're honoring the Muckleshoot tribe who this land is from. Then in June of 2023, we had Rich Summers come present to the board and just talk a little bit about what the Native program is. And next steps coming out of that board meeting was we wanted to, number one, engage in some of the tribal government-to-government training that's available through OSPI that all board members should be doing in this next year. And then the second piece was going ahead and putting in that hard work to create a land acknowledgement for Kent School District. So the goals for this evening, we want to have a clear understanding of the purpose of land acknowledgements, gain some knowledge of the Muckleshoot tribe, and then we want to walk away with a few next steps so that we can go ahead and be working on this. In the fall, we're hoping to come together so that we can actually fully create a land acknowledgement, okay? So today will hopefully be some action steps to start that work. All right, so we were gonna do some sharing of knowledge just around some of the background of Muckleshoot, so I'm gonna pass this over to Willard.
So we won't do a whole Muckleshoot 101 tonight, but just give some reference to where we are today in Kent. So I think it's important understanding of where our people ancestrally lived, right, and to where we live today, right? So I live in the Muckleshoot Reservation, but it's fee land, so I pay property taxes just like everybody else, but it's within the boundaries of the reservation because we have a checkerboard, what's called a checkerboard reservation, where I have relatives live on the reservation that have tax-free land, but it's in trust for the federal government, right? So they can never sell it, but it stays in trust so we don't lose it. So I'm an example of a tribal member that lives in the reservation, right, works in the community and so forth. About half of our membership lives on the reservation, half are in the surrounding area, then all across, wherever. So I think it's an important piece just to tonight talk about how was Muckleshoot formed. So 1855, 1856, right? So the Open Land Claims Act really opened up the area for settlers to come in. But then there was an encroachment on the places where our ancestral people lived. And so one of the significant ones was, it's right at Green River College, right at the bottom of the hill where Green River is now. So that's where the confluence of the White and Green Rivers used to come together. And that was one of our largest villages called Ilwaco, about 17 large longhouses and one huge potlatch house. So it was our biggest village for what we call Muckleshoot today. And so giving some reference geographically to where we are here. My personal family, right, so the ancestral village of Stuck is what we call Van Dorn's Landing today, and so where that park is, and so right in the city of Kent. So another reason why it's happy to be here, right, because it's actually part of homeland. Examples though, but like my great-grandfather Joe Bill had home at Katilbik, which is right where Boeing is, where the airfield, and so right in that area was significant for our people. Also had a home in Zietziolach, and Zietziolach is what we call the ID, or the International District Chinatown today. Again, another large village site for our people, about 11 large longhouses and one big potlatch house. And so right there, where the ID and the train station is where that was, right? Because, most of Seattle's a landfill, so it looked quite a bit differently. Which is always fun to think about, right, when the earthquake comes. So, and then he also had a home over at Duwamish Head, which is right at the kind of the viewpoint at Alki, where the fence is there, the bike locks and so forth, right? So you think about the wealth of a singular individual having those multiple homes, but it frames some reference to who we are today. So, but interestingly, so somebody say, oh, so you're Duwamish, which is correct, right, in the lineage, but that's not how he referred to himself as, right? He referred to those village sites ancestrally. So our name is Muckleshoot Tribe, which really is not the best connotation. Now, because of legal statutes, we can't go back and change the name, because the better name would be like Muckleshoot Nation. An example, Rich and I, we were just talking about, like you go to Tulalip, they say, I'm a member of the Tulalip tribes, but I am Snohomish, or I am Stillaguamish, or I am Duwamish. You'll hear tribal members say that. home here, people just say Muckleshoot. But it often confines people's viewpoint of who we are to that little 8-mile stretch of checkerboard reservation, where sometimes you come and make donations, which we appreciate. A little casino joke there, right? I still got 2 kids in college. And one of them's at a private school, so we need that funding. So see, don't call it losing. You say, I'm making a donation. And I should have pictures of them up. Well, maybe just when they were little. They were cute, so you just don't feel bad. No, we'd love to have you out. So during that time, that encroachment happened. People were defending their homelands. It engaged conflict, escalated into what we would call skirmishes, a war, right? So the so-called Indian Wars, the Puget Sound area. And so those different villages banded together. So famous Chief Leschi, really kind of headed all that work up. So during those times of conflict, right, Governor Isaac Stevens, is a history test for the group, wasn't the state of Washington, it was, who knows what it was called then? Thank you, all right, here we go, there we go. Dr. Behringer gets under the smiley face chart, I'm an old school teacher. So, right? Nicely done though, okay. So that's part of that history, right, with that since time memorial curriculum, that's gonna be my OSPI flex on the day is, right? Why that's important, because we want all of our citizens to know that. Right, so the Oregon Territory, right? And so coming in, right, he hired mainly private militias, very few regular U.S. Army and the military, I should say, in this area, right? We were actually winning that conflict, but then going into the treaty-making process, but then they had captured him, right? They were going to hang Leschi, and so the negotiation process. So what they wanted all of our people from the greater Seattle area is to move either to Puyallup or to Nisqually on very small tracts of land. And they confined a lot of our people on what they called Squaxin Island. So not where Squaxin Island is today, but the actual island. No fresh water, no food sources. So really interned our people during that time period, right? But it was through those conflicts that we actually secured the land base that we had today. And Governor Stevens and the U.S. government then confirmed with the 2 years later, in 1857, the Muckleshoot Indian Reservation. So that was kind of the really expedited history lesson today about how we came together. But it's a more of a confederation, right? A conglomerate of groupings of different village peoples that came to that thing. And we can come back and do a much more deep dive if you all wanted to, or if we're more relevant to the teachers and doing the history content and so on. So we talk about that relation to land acknowledgements, right? And so in doing that work. So one of the things we're doing at home is we're really trying to teach our kids that are in K-12 right now. Okay, you're Muckleshoot, but what village did you come from, right? Do you have Yakima descendancy? Are you more related to the Puyallups than you are to these other places, right? Because Muckleshoot is a significant place, and it always has been for our people, and there were villages, 6 of them where the reservation is today, but that's not everywhere we came from. And so when we take them to Seattle, we try to do those active history lessons. It's also acts of sovereignty, so we take our canoes out in Elliott Bay or out in the river, right? And so just Sunday was at Jean Coulon. Took a group out, that beautiful day we had. Got a little windy at the end, so they really had to work to get back, right? But every time we do that is those history lessons we're trying to teach at home, active history, know where their villages were, but it's also acts of sovereignty, right, that are guaranteed in our treaties to actively engage in cultural practices, harvesting medicines, so forth and so on. So, questions on all that? I'm trying to be really quick so I know we got work to do, so. But I think that helps because there's different narratives on who we are and different groups and so forth. And so over the past couple of years, you've probably seen ads on TV about our people, on NPR, our sponsorships with the Seahawks and the Kraken, spending my retirement monies. So, but it's really, the intent of those is to get a more evolved history of our people and to reshape that narrative of who we are. So, not anybody else, but it is important because our ancestors did fight the 1974 Bolt decision, right? So during our civil rights struggle in the fish wars, that decision reaffirmed that we are the political successors to the Duwamish tribe because it's such a significant population of our people are Duwamish. And so when those things come up, it's like we've already been through these battles. We're not really sure why it's still a conversation because we've done the work behind it. But it is important because That's why the history work and the STI work we're so vested in it, because it's such an important history. We need to get it out there. And it's not readily available, right? If you just go to you can't really Google it and find all the deeper history that we want to provide in doing that. Let's see, I made some notes I wanted to make sure. Yeah, so you think of, I always try to do a visual, is we think of our usual and accustomed area that we live. So the Cascade Mountains to the Salish Sea, what we call Puget Sound. Really kind of North Seattle down to Puyallup. So right, we talked about our usual and accustomed area. Then there's our treaty area, what's been negotiated, that we can, right, hunt, fish, gather medicines. And it's similar to our UNA, but it's not quite as large. I should actually say, the first one I described, I misspoke, was our treaty area. Our usual and custom actually extends from Everett all the way down to Nisqually. So if you are heading south towards Olympia and you're coming out of JBLM and you come down into the valley there. Right? So that's why we're the only tribe out of the 29 federally recognized tribes that's the signer of both Medicine Creek and Point Elliott. And so because that's the expanse of where our people used to live and do those things. So it's our usual and custom area, our treaty area, and then our little baby reservation that we live on. Yeah, yeah. Because it is really small. So, yeah. Questions? I know it was a lot.
Yeah, could you just start over and do the whole?
Absolutely. I should have just pulled out my computer. I got the presentation in there. We can do. Yes. Absolutely. And I got to catch myself because it's now the John McCoy Luleolosh since time immemorial curriculum. And so it's about over a 30-year time span stemming from the 1989 Centennial Accord, which was a meeting between the governor and most of the federally recognized tribes in the state of Washington. One of the main tenets that came out of that was tribal leaders pushing for a better educated citizenry, not just tribal kids, but all kids around our history. And so 1999 was the Centennial Agreement, and reaffirmed this in 2003. The Office of Indian Ed did some significant research, really around reading in the American Indian, and then out from that came the since time immemorial curriculum. So it's been vetted by all 29 federally recognized tribes, vetted and supported, and it's an evolving process. There's more curriculum developed every year. So one of the things that we'll be doing, and an opportunity for you all, we actually got some, let me back up. 2005, it got put into legislation encouraging all the school districts to teach about the history and culture and tribal sovereignty of the nearest federally recognized tribe. A decade later, we got it into law requiring districts to teach about the local history, right, culture and tribal sovereignty of the nearest federally recognized tribe. Fine print was when school districts adopt or revise their history or social studies curriculum, right? You all are a good example of a district that has done that work. But 9 years later, we still have some districts that have not adopted or revised their history curriculum or social studies curriculum, right? Some just don't have the bandwidth to do it, right? And so we understand that some of our smaller districts and our smaller tribes just don't have the wherewithal, which we're working to change that narrative. And then some districts just don't want to do it. And so some of the contemporary things that you'll hear out there, that it's an activist curriculum, it's CRT, it's, just, all the reasons why we're not going to do it. We're an LEA, you can't tell us what to do. But it's really, the curriculum really came out of the affirmation of that government to government relationship to acknowledge that in the important citizenry, right, for all of our students to learn this history and culture.
I did have one question.
Yes.
Thank you for giving us some of the physical span of the Muckleshoot. Could you, and this is maybe a lot of numbers off the top of your head, and if you don't have it, I totally understand. Maybe the size? How many people are members currently today? Do you know how big, back in 1857, how big was the tribe at that time?
Absolutely.
And then, do we know at all how many students in our district? I know also it's hard when trying to get two different, and I've heard that. But if we have some of those numbers too, I just would love to hear some of those.
Absolutely. So current membership is right around 3,400 tribal members. And then there's a few hundred additional descendants that don't qualify yet. I say that yet because it's an evolving process. Each tribe gets to determine how they dictate their membership. So some it's descendancy, where you just show that direct line to that. And so typically the numbers come off of the original census, which is for most tribes took place in 1934 under the Indian Reorganization Act, where the United States said you have to adopt a Western style form of government. Most of them, like Muckleshoot, adopted a tribal council. And so, and it looks different in different places. There is a consensus model that exists in a few places around the country. Most of them adopted, there's a template constitution. The tribes all still live under a lot of amendments, but still live under those today. 1934, and also the Dawes Act, or what we call the Allotment Act, 37 at that time, kind of around the turn of the century, tribal members. So the numbers greatly diminish. And there's variance in the 1850s on how many. So, because by that time, 1850s, most, what we group, call Coast Salish nations in this area, 98% of our people had been decimated by disease. So by the 1850s, disease and warfare. So the numbers, but it's hard to get an accurate count of that time. So,
Fair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that make sense? And you talked about students today. So that's part of when you all go through the government-to-government training with my colleague Maxine Alex. She does an amazing job. But one of the really good presenters in there will talk about Max ID, right? So currently in our systems, right, unless the student marks American Indian, Alaska Native only, right, does it count?
Yep.
Right? So after COVID, we lost 20,000 kids. So where did they go? They didn't just disappear, right? Right. So that's huge though across the state. And so, right. And so we're doing work locally, but at the national level, hopefully we can change that, and so that they can, there's no such thing as a 100%. Well, native kid from one place, right? Yeah. And so that blending. And so, but we want them to be able to acknowledge all of their parts, right? We want to acknowledge both their mom and their dad and have that show up correctly on our enrollments. Because it impacts you all because of funding, right? Yep. So if it only shows up that Rich has, and I'm just throwing out numbers, that he only has 100 kids, but there's actually 500, okay? That's significant, right? So those Title VI dollars, those Title III dollars, right? All of those resources, that's a significant amount of money, right? So there's the business deal, right? So I always like to preface that, because people, even if they don't agree with the curriculum and so forth, just the brass tacks of those dollars and cents, that we can increase those services, right, to those kids. Plus that we can network other services because of those numbers. And so working on that max ID is critical for all of our districts. So we have the best numbers possible, but also letting that kid celebrate all the parts of them. Yeah.
Right now we have 9 Muckleshoot students enrolled, and since 2008, when I started here, it's kind of gone from around like 10 to 15. So it's kind of stayed pretty steady at that number.
I'm going to move on to our next slide if there are no other questions. So as we were talking earlier today, what is a land acknowledgement? And there is the traditional custom that's been historically used by Native communities, but in talking to Rich, he didn't grow up using land acknowledgements within his background. And can you just give a little bit of that background of how you've seen it show up in Native communities?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways we see it show up a lot today, at least for our people, is we travel every summer on our annual tribal canoe journey, and it's been a resurgence over the last 30, 40 years of that practice. And so when we engage in it now, it was a handful of canoes in 1989, and now typically there's over 100 ocean-going canoes that participate in it, and that translates out to about 10 to 20,000 people every summer. But when we travel to someone else's village or landing site, so like say we come from here and we go over to Suquamish, one of the things we do is we don't land our canoe, we pull up on shore or pull up right offshore, speak in our language so they know who we are, where we come from, but we ask permission to come ashore. We state our intent of why we're there. So that's one of the relevances to the protocol, is what we call it, right, for those land acknowledgements, okay? And then so when we're out advising, I say people, so that's one way that you can approach it in doing that land acknowledgement with that. And, we really try to advise is please don't ask the native kids to do it, okay? Right, or read it, okay? And I was telling my colleagues here, as we were prepping today, I literally just got out of a meeting with 2 of my director colleagues at OSPI, and they were asking me to do one. So I said, well, I want us to just take a step back. Why are you asking the native person to do the land acknowledgement, right? Okay, so I just want you to sit with it for a minute. And they were like, oh, yeah. So it's kind of that performative thing, that checkbox, right? Is you want me to acknowledge the lands that I'm, so those conversations get nuanced, right? In doing that work. But that's for us where that comes from. There's different perspectives on it, right? And I always say too, and I see that you're all, right, we're here today, you're invested in doing this work and want to do it. But I tell groups though, if you're really not about it, don't do it. Because what it will do is more harm than good, right? Where we're assaging somebody's guilt, and so they can check a box by putting it down. And I just tell them, just don't do it then, right? It doesn't offend me if you don't do it. But if we go in and Google right now, most of Seattle businesses and institutions, I look at them and they're highly offensive to me. So they're doing damage rather than what the intent of them was to do, right? Some of our institutions that we've worked with, and they put up something really vague, again, highly offensive, right? Because I know my ancestors had a fight for what we had to do today, right? 2 actual wars. Luckily, we won both of those, right? Very rare instances. But putting something up that's inaccurate, or you didn't go into that government-to-government relationship, I think is so critical with that work. So, so I honor the work you're doing, but that's truly the advisement with it. It's like nobody's monitoring if you don't do it, and said, okay, we're coming after you for not doing a land acknowledgement. But if it's meaningful, do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful.
I feel like you touched on every bullet here. Just making sure that it's meaningful to the group that is, saying the land acknowledgement. You did go and teach.
If I may, I just
ahead.
wanted to thank for that sharing, and for our board members that weren't here during the time when we started this. I want to thank Richard for his guidance to us as a board superintendent governance team. I remember, Richard, you saying, we can look at different land acknowledgements from around us, but that's not the purpose of this. And I really appreciate that 3rd bullet, and you brought that on at the end there, that it needs to be meaningful to the people who create the land acknowledgement. And I just remember that, Richard, and as a board, it needs to be meaningful to you, because that's the foundation by which then it's going to be created by them. And we should not ask, our native students to do that. And I just want to reiterate that and thank Richard for that guidance that he offered back in June. So thank you.
Just piggyback on it. Thank you, Doctor. But what you can ask them, if appropriate, but I would do it through Rich first, is, so what I advise is, say, if you are having an event or a meeting or a ceremony or whatever that might be, is you can ask the group if they want to do an opening or if they want to do a welcoming. And so that's because I much prefer to get asked that, right? Mm-hmm. Right. We were talking about earlier, we got a little cultural fatigue around land acknowledgements. And so it's, but there's so much other work we can be doing, right? Okay, and it's important. But I do appreciate the work you guys are putting into this, but that's a way to approach it. So I don't want to leave without actually giving a tool, right? It's easy to come and say, don't do all this stuff, and then not say what you should be, or what we recommend, right? Those are the worst kind of performances or trainings, so.
Can I just ask the question of, you said you've seen a lot that are offensive.
Yeah.
What are things in a land acknowledgement that would make a land acknowledgement offensive?
What if it's too vague? Okay. So most of the ones in our broader area here don't ever mention Muckleshoot. And so it's super offensive to us. And so when someone says, and I'll put the political one out there, when people say, well, Duwamish aren't federally recognized. And I said, well, I'm federally recognized, and I'm Duwamish, right? And I know my ancestors, right, proud of that ancestry. So we are federally recognized. It's under the banner of Muckleshoot, the Muckleshoot Nation, that confederation, or Tulalip, which there's way more of them up there, so I'm not sure why they always pick on us, but it's okay. My relatives up there, or Suquamish. It's about where our people ended up. Because my other great-grandfather, Chishiahode, was what they call the last free native that lived in Seattle, lived right in Portage Bay, right where the University of Washington is, and then he retired out to Suquamish, the Port Madison Reservation. So it's nuanced, right? But it's part of that history, understanding that who we are and where we come from, so, yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to show, you guys have seen this. This is our current board land acknowledgement that we have. I'm not going to read it because we've read it a lot of times. Creating a clear land acknowledgement, some tips that we had: using clear, respectful language, being concise yet sincere, analyzing a number of different land acknowledgements to determine what makes an effective land acknowledgement, and then getting feedback and making those revisions. And so that feedback process is where we really want to bring in tribal consultation in order to support us in making those revisions and getting that feedback as we're working. Rich, do you want to talk for a minute about the land acknowledgement you had created for the Native program? Use the microphone.
So I've been here since 2000, can you hear me? I've been here since 2018 in this position, and we had a land acknowledgement, but I felt a revision was needed. So I actually, reached out to the Muckleshoot tribe, and I was directed towards their website. I think it has like 12 examples. And I just looked around at other districts and seen what they were doing, and I just formulated my own, and I wanted to make sure it touched all the points I wanted to make, as far as like Cascade Mountains to the Salish Sea was one of the most important parts, because it covers their whole land base. Like Will was talking about earlier, we're not just recognizing their tiny reservation area that they're on today. And I wanted to name Muckleshoot Indian Tribe specifically because they're our partner tribe. They're very good to my program, specifically with their charity, their Muckleshoot charity donations. And OSPI recommends that we consult with them every year, and that's always a great process. So naming them specifically, naming their land base, and just making it a little more in-depth than what we had previously. So those are my kind of goals for it.
Something that I hope you guys could add to, just when we talk about consulting with Muckleshoot, how many districts are consulting with Muckleshoot?
12, I think.
Okay. So it's kind of one of those things where we're not the only district who may ask questions of Muckleshoot or be wanting them to come into our conversations. And so knowing that they have 12 other districts that ask a lot of them throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's really why a position like Rich is in is so important, to be that liaison. And so he can dog it, because it's not easy, right? To either get that consultation, you really have to be dogged about it, and persistent, because there is such a high demand. And then, even though there is a developed Department of Education at Muckleshoot, it's still very challenging, because it really comes down to typically one person that's doing the consulting, and so doing that work. And so that's kind of the unintended result of some of the legislation. Put a heavy burden on the tribes, then that wasn't the intent. So you look at a tribe like Cowlitz, who's just beginning this process, right? They've only been federally recognized for about 20 years, right? But they're responsible to 35 districts. And so they're like, okay, so Will, how do we do this, right? The math doesn't work. So, but yeah, you guys already have that relationship and that signed agreement, so that's good. And I do encourage, the research, the land acknowledgements on the Muckleshoot website. It was several years of work that went into that, so as part of that process at the beginning. And so, yeah, there is a handful there. So we recommend some people that have just gone on and selected one, and that's what they use as their land acknowledgement, or use it like Rich did as kind of that motivation and that intent. And that's why they're there, and then adapted that.
But so on this website, and can you? Oh, I can click it. Okay, there we go. There we go. If you go onto this, Muckleshoot does a really good job of setting up just some of the background around the history, and you can learn more as well, what land they occupied. And then they have a lot of starters here as far as these are just some examples that they've put on their website as far as starting points. And so as an activity for the board, I thought we could take a little time looking at some of the land acknowledgements that exist and picking out some of the language that we like from these, and seeing if there's language that we may want to, revisit as we're working through a land acknowledgement.
I see the first one is almost this. The first one is almost the one that we now have. It's close to it. And it's missing this. Was that Salish?
There we go.
And with that, it's too.
There we go.
Yeah, Salish. See, yep.
I was wondering if you could provide some just clarification, because I kind of had multiple conversations around this, and I would just like to hear from your perspective. A lot of Native individuals, depending on where they identify with, will interchangeably use the term Indian. But opposingly, I also hear that Indian can also be derogatory as kind of a identity that was forcefully adopted. And so from your perspective, what advice do you have in terms of the true identities or the languages that we can use?
The best terminology would be to use the individual's preference on their tribal identification. So the Muckleshoot or Buckleshoot, right? And some have a deeper meaning beyond that, but typically it's that. American Indian is the legal term, okay? But you see some generational things in there, right? So I don't have a problem with being called an Indian. So now, some scholarly research says when Columbus invaded, right, the Caribbean, right, that the friars that traveled with him, it's in their script. So we have that documentation referring to the Taino people as children of God, and that's where the word Indios came from, right? So the mythology about him sailing to India, well, any world history teachers in here? What's somebody besides Dr. Behringer? What's the problem with that in 1492? Because he wouldn't have been sailing to India.
Well, he thought he was going to India.
He thought, but not India, because there's no India at the time, right? As Hindus, right? So he didn't. We're not called Hindis. Little joke there. Sorry, it's a little off, right? Because there was Hindustan at the time, right? So there wasn't an India. So there's just the problem in that mythology, right? And so that history. Some don't agree with that research, but it's one that I fall under. So I don't see it as an insult. But you see a generational thing. So it really went from Indian to Native. Some people use indigenous, but that typically refers to all of North America and South America. If you go to Canada, you hear a lot of First Nations. And Alaskans are for sure Alaskan Natives, right, Rich? Yeah, for the most part, right, as that overarching group. And so, but you do see it as a generational thing, right? Because my kids will argue with me about it and so forth. But yeah, so I use it interchangeably. People, me and my training, it's like, which one do I use? And so, but yeah, best appropriate is to ask for the tribal naming and what it is. But some of them are even offensive, okay? So I have friends that are Lakotas, right? But their official legal tribal name is Sioux, but that's a French imposed terminology on them, right? They do not like it at all, right? For you even to say the word, okay? So but then some do and some don't. So I don't know if that helped answer at all or if that made it worse.
No, like from an individual perspective, I absolutely respect that. I guess I'm coming from when we're trying to create a edited or updated version of this land acknowledgement.
Absolutely.
What is the best identity to utilize that I guess the Muckleshoot tribe in its entirety have spoken for? Do they still keep the Indian in there, or is it just Muckleshoot?
Yeah, we have to, because, and I just learned this a few years ago, is to go back and do a name change because it affects all of the federal legislation and policy. And so what we'd much prefer that it said Muckleshoot Nation, right? That would be a better connotation of who we are and as the groupings of people. So we have to keep the word Indian in there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so that's why we keep it.
So would it be respectful if, as the board, we decided to say Muckleshoot Nation instead of Indian?
You could, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Some places have done that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and some of our younger ones now refer to themselves as that, even though it's not the legal term, so, yeah. Thank you. Good question. Yeah.
I have
Yes, Donald.
a question. So, as we're providing the land acknowledgement, and the way that you'd explained it, it is a way for us, as we're coming into an area, to acknowledge who we are, why we're there, right? And so the purpose of it is to speak to those in that place that we're moving into, correct? And so would it be appropriate for us to look at deciding how we address the Muckleshoot Nation or Muckleshoot Indian tribe with the students that we have here, that we ask them what they would prefer, as they are the stewards, in my opinion, of your tribe here within KSD.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be great to have students a part of the process. I always encourage that, right? Because it adds that whole different perspective into the thing, you know, into the process, not to the thing. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that could be a fun idea. Come up with a few options and allow some of the students to also take votes and participate in the selection of our new land acknowledgement.
And it would also allow us to adjust that each year based on how things are changing and how they identify themselves. I feel like it would be it wouldn't have to change a lot of the wording, so it wouldn't require a ton of adjustment, but it would allow us to make that change as our society and as those students may feel differently in coming years on what they identify as and what they think of themselves and of themselves in respect to what we are working with in this realm.
Absolutely. And I think, the really important piece of land acknowledgements, what I recommend is, what's the action around it? What's the action piece of it? So some groups and institutions have put that right into that land acknowledgement, and we commit to, this is what's, right? It's an educational piece or about, the stewardship of the land, and we're going to put resources into that, right, and doing that work. So, and those can be pieces that, we connect to outdoor education, social emotional learning, all of those different, learning pieces that we, and so.
Yeah.
That's my classroom teacher hat coming back on, and where we can get them at.
Yeah, if I may, no, there's a great ideas of what I'd invite the board to, Richard, we have student and family nights that are around culture and a number of things. They're invigorating and also educational, but our students are there. And, just socializing that's one, invite you to one of those sessions. And we still have our yearly end of year celebration where, we also have food and other things that happen, and just fantastic opportunities for us, not only as a board, as KSC staff, to acknowledge. The other is that it is part of our board goals is, seeking student voice across the board. And this is just another example, so great ideas.
I guess I'm curious in the same sense of, we have 12 students that are in the Muckleshoot tribe, but we have 200 Native students in the program. And so when we're thinking about including student voice, would we, knowing that we're honoring the land of the Muckleshoot, would it be advised to just include our Muckleshoot students in that, or all of our Native students?
Oh, no, it's equally important to include all of them, right? This is the land base, and so it's important to know, to acknowledge where we are, but also recognizing their history. So a lot of our students today are third generation, fourth generation that were forcibly removed out of the reservations during the federal policy of relocation, right? Where we're going to give you training, right? So Seattle was one of those big urban centers, and that's why there's over 80,000, some over 80,000 Native people that live in the greater Seattle area now today. But a lot of them are a couple generations disconnected from their communities. So you see a huge Alaska Native population here, a huge Blackfeet population, because we were one of those centers here, Oakland, Denver, LA, right? Out of those came urban Indian ghettos, right? And so historically, that was in West Seattle, right? But now it's all, right, everything's moved south, okay? So that's why you see the increase in native student numbers in Kent, right? In Highline, it's really spiked, and it has one of the largest urban centers now. And so, that was a really long-winded answer to, yes, we want to include all their voices into it. Because it's a unique perspective on what we call ourselves urban Indians. Because I grew up in Seattle, right? I didn't grow up on the reservation. It's a much different perspective. So, yeah, it's important.
Because I have the student data, I could help disseminate that when you get these different options. Personally, I don't think you'll get a lot of love for the term Indian because it's generational, but you want to put it out there, right, to give people an option.
Any additional questions from the board? Okay. Well then, it is 5:45, and it sounds like you have something much more exciting than us to be part of because it involves students, and so I would like to give you that extra time to get there safely. So it is 5:45, and at this time, we're going to adjourn the work session. The work session is adjourned for an executive session for approximately 45 minutes. The purpose of this executive session is to discuss the performance of a public employee, potential litigation, and the financial or legal risks of a course of action. We will look forward to seeing everybody back here at 6:30.
I get into this thing?
It is 6:32, and we are calling our regular meeting to order.
Yeah, I know mine.
The first thing that we'll be doing is doing a roll call of the board members. I will call each board member's name, and if they are present, please answer with the word present. Director Song?
Present.
Director Cook?
Present.
Director Clark?
Present?
Vice President Vera?
Present.
And then myself is present also. Director Clark, will you say the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening to everybody who has joined us tonight. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in the board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those of you who are viewing our live stream. The purpose of our board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to the comments from visitors. Whether made verbally in person, verbally on video, or written, comments are limited to a total of one per person per regular board meeting. One additional comment per person may be submitted for a public hearing topic if there's a public hearing on the agenda. All forms of public comment are subject to Chapter 4256 RCW Public Records Act. The public may comment at regular board meetings in a manner authorized by state law. All comments must adhere to Policy 1420 and Procedure 1420P. If you wish to make a comment to the board, comment forms are available for completion prior to the meeting and must be turned in no later than the beginning of the legislative report. No forms will be accepted once this report has begun. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments will be heard after the opening, during preliminary communications from the audience, at specific agenda items, and during final communication from the audience. Students will be the first to speak on any topic. Please state your first and last name prior to beginning your testimony. Abuse of public comments personally directed toward the board, staff, or students will not be tolerated. The use of specific names or personally identifiable information of board, staff, or students is not allowed. Board members or KSD staff members may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when not adhering to Procedure 1420P. All comments, whether verbal or written, must adhere to the standards of civility as defined in Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. If you are seated in overflow room, there is a brief delay in the live stream audio. We'll allow extra time for you to make your way to the boardroom after your name is called. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide the items directly to our safety service staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. We are now on to section 1.06, land acknowledgement. Vice President Farah, will you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes, and hopefully it will be a better one soon. But we acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe who historically lived throughout the area between Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you very much. On item 1.07, agenda review, Superintendent Vela, are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
President Margell, there are no changes to the agenda.
Great. We are moving on to section 2.0. And for 2.01, our Asian Pacific Heritage Month, Director Song, could you read that proclamation for us?
Yep. Kent School District Proclamation, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Whereas Congress passed a law in May 1990 to designate the month of May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, calling on the people of the United States, especially the educational community, to observe the month with appropriate ceremonies, programs, and activities. And whereas Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have distinguished themselves in the arts, literature, and sports, and have made contributions in science, medicine, and technology that enrich our nation. And whereas Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have lived and worked in Washington State for over 150 years, and have contributed to the rich cultural heritage of the state. And whereas the diverse Asian Pacific Islander American population in Washington State numbers more than 674,000 and represent more than 11 Asian and 7 Pacific Island nations, whereas Asian Pacific American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to educate the public on the role Asian and Pacific Islanders have played in American history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaims this month as May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, signed this 8th day of May, 2024, by the Kent Board of Directors and Superintendent Israel Vela.
Thank you so much, Director Song. Director Cook, could you please read Proclamation 2.02, National School Nurses Day?
Yes. Whereas all students have a right to have their health needs safely met while in the school setting, and whereas children today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school, and whereas school nurses are professional nurses that advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievements of all students by providing a critical safety net for our nation's most fragile children, and whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, parents, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health, and whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth by developing and providing programs in leadership, and whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors hereby proclaims May 8th, 2024, National School Nurse Day in Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in this observance. Signed this 8th day of May, 2024, by the Board of Directors of the Kent School District and Israel Vela, Secretary to the Board.
Thank you so much, Director Cook. I have the pleasure of reading Proclamation 2.03, Teacher Appreciation Week. Whereas the role of the classroom teacher cannot be overemphasized, for they are the single most influential factor in a child's educational experience. And whereas our teachers are at their best when they hold their students to high expectations, challenge them to think critically, push them to excel in the face of any obstacle, and guide their development towards becoming contributing citizens. And whereas under the expert direction of our teachers, classrooms throughout Kent School District are places where students are given the opportunity to display creativity and imagination and develop a passion for learning that will last a lifetime. And whereas excellent teaching is a labor of love, and our dedicated professionals often use their own resources and work long hours to enhance and enrich the daily learning experiences of their students, who innovate and individualize lessons. And whereas educators shape the future of our community and nation as they work each day to prepare our students to compete globally, and whereas the value of our talented, committed, tireless, and inspirational teachers is without measure. Now therefore it be resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors hereby proclaims May 6th through 10th, 2024, Teacher Appreciation Week in Kent School District, and urges all citizens to pay tribute to our public school teachers. Signed this 8th day of May, 2024, the Board of Directors, Kent School District, and Israel Vela, the Secretary to the Board. We are now at section 3.0, preliminary comments from the audience.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. This evening, I have 3 comments turned in person for general topics, and online comments included 2 videos, general topics, and no student comments have been received. No written comments were received.
And I'm sorry, all of the comments were any of them students?
None.
No, thank you. Thank you. Okay, our first comment today is by Nadeem Gull. Thank you. Ms. Curry, give us just one moment to start the timer. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nadeem, and I am in Kent community. And I'm here for a couple of topics, quick topics. I think they're not in the agenda. I'm just going to briefly talk about it. It's about the lunch programs in schools, Kent School District. I belong to a Muslim community, and I think we have growing number of students coming in the school nowadays, and the food options are very limited. Like we have options of pepperoni or some veggie food over there. So we'll appreciate if there's an option to include halal food in the lunch program. Given the community numbers are growing, so I think it will help a lot of people. That's one item. And second item, we have early dismissals on Wednesday in school. And as a Muslim, we have a prayer on Friday, which comes around noon time. So our suggestion is that, is it possible to switch early dismissals from Wednesday to Friday? Because I have 4 kids in elementary, middle, and high school. So my wife had to rush to elementary school to pick up my kids. Middle one, I had to pick it up. And high school guys just walk home. So we pick them up on Friday, and we drop them back as well, every Friday, because that's our high priority as compared to education. So is there an option or suggestion to switch early dismissals from Wednesday to Friday? Those are the couple of quick topics we have. I didn't prepare anything. I just showed up to just talk about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Layla Jones.
Good evening, President Margell, school board members, Superintendent Vella. My name is Layla Jones. I am the Vice President of the Kent Education Association. And tonight I have the honor of introducing the Kent Labor Alliance behind me. We have joined together with the common interests of being heard, respected, and valued by the district to which we dedicate our service. We also have come together because it appears that our district would rather try to divide us rather than truly work with all of us. And we refuse to let that happen. Together, the Kent Labor Alliance is myself, and I'm going to have our other friends come forward and introduce themselves as well.
Dan Rizaya, KAP.
Darren Blackwell, AFT.
Debbie Mathis, KSFSA.
Tim Martin, KEA President.
David Morrison, AFSCME President.
Darren Garrett, President of AFT.
Tricia Garcia, President of CAP.
Additionally, there have been many discussions around Resolution 1669 in this space over the past couple of months. And I believe it was 2 meetings ago, it was suggested to take a pause and go back to the labor partners to gather each of their input regarding 1669 before deciding to proceed. And that suggestion was voted down because it was reaffirmed that conversations were had. Yet we think it would be helpful for you to hear from us directly as to whether those conversations happened or not. Resolution 1669 was not brought forward by any labor group and was never about labor group concerns. And we hope hearing from all of us tonight dispels that myth. So again, I'm going to ask my labor leaders behind me to share if they were asked about 1669, and if so, were they in support of that resolution or not?
KAP was not approached.
AFT was approached, but I, for my membership, said that I thought the gentleman in question on that was in the right.
I am with KSFSA, and I was not approached.
I'm with AFSCME, and we were approached, but we said we didn't see an issue.
CAP, I was approached and did not have an issue.
Tim Martin, KEA. No one approached KEA.
So I hope that helps answer maybe some of those questions that were had that you weren't able to get yourselves. So we, the Kent Labor Alliance, choose to work in Kent, and we are committed to our members, our students, and our community. We stand in solidarity with each other, and we will continue to work together because we know that this district runs on unions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Padilla.
Superintendent Vela, President Margell, members of the board. I stand in front of you today as a citizen in the Kent School District, and I also would like to advocate for the support of the TOP program here in the Kent School District. For those of you who are unaware, the TOP program stands for the Outreach Program. It's a program that provides specially designed instruction for our 18 to 21-year-old population. It helps in transitioning our students from being students to adulthood. Currently, there are 80 students in the program, and we have 8 full-time teachers. Next year, the program is projected to have 72 students, although throughout the year, there's a possibility of a handful, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 students join the program. This year, the Associate Superintendent of Student Supports has taken away 2 teachers for next year, and so there will be 6 teachers in the program. The caseload for that program is 1 to 12, and so with 6 teachers, there will be no room for growth. There's 72 students. Not to mention, one of the teachers goes to the Highline Achievement Program, where kids learn skills in the Highline program, so most of the time there'll be 5 teachers there. In addition, the people in the program have asked for counseling services or social work. This particular population is most at risk for abuse, sexual abuse, and the program is now grossly understaffed, but next year, it'll be even worse, and we're wondering how this program is going to exist. This program is nationally known. People from around the state, around the country come and observe this program because it is so well run. It is one of the shiny spots in the Kent School District, and it appears that the district is going to, it just feels like it's another program that's going to be diminished because for whatever reason, it's not valued. But these students deserve, they did their part, they went through the Kent School District, did their part, and now it's the adults who are letting them down, and it feels not only unethical but immoral, and I encourage you to advocate for these students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have 2 online comments.
Good evening, board members. Tonight I'll be discussing the recently failed capital levy. I can't say everything I want to say in 3 minutes, so in addition to this comment, I have emailed you all a longer version with more details. If anyone has concerns over the accuracy of my comments, please refer to that email or reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to discuss further. According to King County Elections, this levy is currently failing with only 43.3% approval. What's notable is that, compared to November, the votes against the levy remain the same, while the votes in favor of the levy dropped by nearly 25%. But before you go and blame the community for not supporting you, let's take a look at what actions you took in order to gain support. First, the tax amount. According to a district FAQ, quote, the failed 2023 bond asked for $495 million to fund capital projects. The 2024 Capital Projects and Technology Replacement Levy asks for $190.2 million for both capital projects and technology over 3 years. But that's misleading, because the bond is paid over 21 years and includes interest, while the levy is over 3 years without interest. So what was the actual difference? According to a district presentation to the board, the 2023 bond would have collected $130 million in the first 4 years. The November levy in those same 4 years would have collected an additional $123 million over the existing capital levy. Effectively, the November levy only reduced the tax burden by less than 5% from the April 2023 bond. You cannot claim that you minimize costs so that you prioritize certain projects, because the money was the same. Second, the project list. In the same district FAQ, the district states, quote, "The pre-K program space expansion has been removed from this levy after community input ranked it lower in priority." What they don't mention is that synthetic fields ranked lower than pre-K expansion, yet the district chose to expand the synthetic fields project scope by including Mill Creek, a school whose field was already on the 2016 bond and subsequently deferred. What they also don't mention is that the pre-K expansion never actually included starting or running the programs, only building the space for it. With so much discussion around funding cuts and reduced FTE, how would the district possibly have fully staffed a pre-K program at every elementary school? You do not get credit for cutting half-baked projects. Third is community outreach. I say outreach, but what I really mean is bombarding the community with emails, texts, and robocalls. I received 6 total emails mentioning the April 2023 bond, 13 emails about the November 2023 levy, and 20 emails about the April 2024 levy. 11 of those 20 were dedicated solely to the levy, with no other information in them. I'm not signed up for text messages, but I've heard from the community that text message notifications increased as well. Doubling and tripling the number of emails you send is not an improvement. In fact, if anything, it's just plain annoying. This failure is not on the community, it's on you, the board. You all approved the April levy with no changes from November, and you all should have expected this result. Do better, or resign, but don't do nothing. Thank you.
I believe we have one other online comment.
Board members, my name is Allison Riley. I am going to be speaking about the iGrad move. One of my records requests shows the entire school board and members of district leadership were given the following information on August 22nd, 2023 at 7:18 p.m. And I quote, "KSD originally planned to use the Sequoia Baptist Church property purchase as a site for iGrad relocation. However, the church deal did not move forward due to the asking price of that church. At this time, iGrad will stay in its current location. iGrad is now slated to be moved into the Green Rebound building, a space significantly smaller than its current location. Sequoia Baptist Church was always the intended space for iGrad. The district and board is now pushing this robust and much needed program into a space far too small. Some of the limitations to the new space include no kitchen, which means no warm lunches, no space to teach life skills, and no space to expand CTE options. There will be no washing machine at the new space. This is a missed opportunity to support those students who qualify for McKinney-Vento, as well as another lost opportunity to teach life skills. Additionally, this means the iGrad custodian will continue to do the school's laundry at home. The board voted to provide $800,000 to renovations. Now 2 boardables must be used to recoup a small portion of the lost space. Each of those will be about $125,000. Portables are less than ideal spaces. We hear that time and again. So why are they okay for iGrad staff and students? One of the student identified needs at iGrad is on-site GED testing. iGrad is now an official testing site and will have to go through that approval process again. That will be dependent upon getting a portable installed so that there is little to no downtime between when iGrad is offering those GED tests and when they cannot. This new location will not serve everyone currently enrolled, and it will be impossible to expand the program both in enrollment and how the community is served. Current and projected future cohort numbers clearly indicate a need for the program. Students and staff have openly shared their needs with you all. I had the pleasure of spending nearly 2 hours at iGrad learning about the program, touring the current space, and getting a direct comparison between the program's current space and the green building they're moving to. I wrote the board after that visit to share the wonderful things I saw, as well as some good things about the move and the many concerning things that will be happening with this move. I was never acknowledged. Seeing and hearing how student and staff needs were not taken into account prior to the decision to move iGrad to that specific building, as well as the various ways student and staff identified needs cannot be met in the new space, is beyond disappointing. I cannot share all I want to in 3 minutes, so I will end on this. iGrad is a vital program and school in the KSD community. This community needs the school board and the district to treat it as such. The learning space should absolutely reflect that. How is shoving iGrad into this little space the right move versus a move? How are the board and district working to ensure student and staff needs are met in this move? And what is being done to address how the move will halt program expansion possibilities? Thank you.
We are now on section 4.0 and 4.01. Superintendent Vela, your report, please.
Thank you, President Markell. As we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of our teachers. Your impact extends far beyond the classroom. You are mentors, guides, and role models, instilling not only knowledge, but also values, compassion, and a love for learning in the hearts of our students. Your dedication to excellence inspires us all. I am immensely proud to work alongside such an incredible team of educators. Your passion and commitment are the driving force behind the success of our schools, and for that, I am deeply grateful. During this special week, please take a moment to reflect on the difference you make every single day. Know that your hard work does not go unnoticed and that you are truly appreciated, not just this week, but every day of the year. Thank you for all you do. On National School Nurse Day, we extend our deepest gratitude to all of our incredible nurses who serve in our schools. Your unwavering dedication and compassionate care ensure the well-being of our students every day. Thank you for your tireless efforts, especially during challenging times. Your commitment to health and safety enriches our school communities immeasurably. I myself spent time in this very room this afternoon with all of our nurses who were learning a new program. For that, I thank you. I was privileged to be a guest judge at the Scenic Hill Science Fair in partnership with their dual language program. Over 30 projects were presented entirely in Spanish. I was thrilled to converse with students in Spanish to discuss their projects. I was amazed by the students' creativity and science skills, and I hope to be invited back again next year. I recently had the pleasure of attending the Multicultural Assembly at Kent Meridian High School alongside Directors Cook and Song. Thank you both for joining me. This legendary annual event truly lived up to its reputation. The performances, including the music, clothing, dance, were incredible. A heartfelt thank you to the KM students and staff for orchestrating this event. Our district is preparing for the next generation of Skyward, called Cumulative. I'm told this tool will provide cleaner graphics, enhanced functionality, and easier navigation, allowing for more efficient and effective use of student information to support systems coherence across the district. Please know, meticulous planning for this migration has been underway for over a year and a half now. While we anticipate there will be challenges, as with the rollout of any new technology, let's continue to be supportive, patient, and flexible as the team continues to prepare for a successful launch in August. I am thrilled to extend my congratulations to our KSD students who successfully completed the World Language Credit by Proficiency testing for this academic year. Those who participated and passed the test have demonstrated proficiency in reading, writing, speaking, and listening in their chosen language, thereby earning high school graduation credits. This year, 397 students across 39 languages participated in the testing process, collectively earning an impressive total of 1,350 credits. Please join me in celebrating the achievements of these students. Congratulations to each and every one of them. Congratulations are in order also for Kent Meridian Sports Medicine team for their outstanding achievement to secure second place at the state championships. The sports medicine students from Kent Meridian clinched second place among 54 schools statewide. This remarkable feat marks the highest placement Kent Meridian has ever achieved at the state level. Amazing job to both the students and their teachers. Congratulations also to Kentwood High School students, Vanessa Votasik, Unified Partner, and Hannah Teeter, Unified Athlete, on their selection to represent Special Olympics of Washington at the National Leadership Conference to be held at the University of Wisconsin in June. I congratulate them on their selection as we continue to grow the unified program for the 24-25 school year. I'd like to shine a spotlight on the remarkable efforts of our digital learning team as they delve into the realm of artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, education. This year, the Washington Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, OSPI, issued guidelines for integrating AI into our future academic curriculum. The digital learning team has been diligently studying and embracing this upcoming implementation, focusing on equity-driven practices. Their dedication to understanding AI technology and its implications, along with their commitment to employing it safely and effectively to enhance learning and teaching, is commendable. This guidance will empower educators and school districts to navigate AI's landscape with confidence and ensuring its positive impact on our educational journey. Recently, the Kiwanis Club proudly hosted its 52nd Annual Awards Luncheon, celebrating the exceptional achievements of this year's essay contest winners. Students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grades showcased their talents and intellect in this competition. I'm proud to congratulate the winners for each grade level. 6th grade, Zoe Liang. 7th grade, Sarah Yu. 8th grade, Joanna Yanos. I also extend my sincere appreciation to the student volunteers, teachers, principals, and the dedicated members of the Kiwanis Club for their tireless efforts in organizing this event. Your commitment to nurturing young minds and fostering a culture of excellence is truly commendable. I'm deeply appreciative of the invaluable support our community partners provide to our students and staff. Among these partnerships, Kent Lake High School is fortunate to collaborate with Centro Rendu. Adriana from Centro Rendu plays a pivotal role as part of the intervention team at Kent Lake. Through her dedicated weekly outreach efforts, including home visits, she establishes trust and rapport with our Spanish-speaking families, contributing significantly to our students' success. Centro Rendu remains an indispensable partner at Kent Meridian High School as well. Their dedicated team members have engaged with over 100 students, offering crucial homework support, guidance, and advocacy in their educational journey. A heartfelt thank you goes out to Centro Rendu for their unwavering efforts in supporting students. Your dedication and commitment make a significant difference in the lives of our students and contribute to the success of the entire community. As we conclude the 3-year journey of Restore, Reclaim, and Revitalize, which is our library's ESSER Fund grant, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the board for their unwavering support of our library program. I am thrilled to commemorate the profound impact of the resources, time, and backing that's been provided. Throughout this initiative, collaboration, connectivity, and partnerships flourished, fostering an environment where the KSD library program could rebound from the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. The library collections have expanded to better mirror the diversity of our community and ensure the delivery of information to our students. I'm immensely proud of the progress we have made, and I look forward to celebrating the lasting effects of this work for years to come. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Vela. We're now moving into our legislative update, 5.01. This is the time when all remaining comment cards need to be turned into the beautiful blue box in front of the beautiful Ms. Zantella. And at the back of, or side of the room, we're going to say. Anybody? Okay. So Director Clark, would you like to give us the legislative update?
Okay, so yesterday, OWASDA sponsored a statewide Zoom meeting, and the topic was materials, supplies, and operating costs. That actually is a line item in the education budget. It principally is aimed at services and that sort of thing. It's things rather than people. It certainly is support for career and technical education and some other things. But the bottom line is, it is a part of the Basic Ed Act, and it is allocated on a per-student basis. So it would come as a surprise to no one that the funding process and the allotted money is the same as it was when the original the lawsuit was.
McCleary?
Yeah, the McCleary Act, sorry. So nothing other than that. Thank you.
Okay. We now move on to section 6.0, the consent agenda. Is there any items up for additional discussion that need to be pulled?
If I can, I'd like
Yes.
to hold 6.14 gifts.
Yep,
I'd like to pull 6.15 personnel report.
yep. Any additional? Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda, items 601 through 6.13.
Second?
The motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion. Seeing no discussion, we'll move for approval of consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.13. All those in favor, please raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of item 6.14, gifts, donations, and memorial acceptance.
Is there a second?
Second?
The motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
I would like to just acknowledge some of the fine gifts that people have put together to support the school district. Cedar Valley Elementary PTA donated $1,000 for support for the spring fling activity. Park Orchard Elementary received equipment to the tune of $1,530 from Church of Christ, and that was for school supplies and materials. Meridian Elementary, a particular group called Foundry 10, which includes one of the teachers, donated $1,000 for adaptive equipment for PE class. Horizon Elementary got two gifts, one from Horizon PTA for $649 to support STEM field trip to Kids Quest Museum, and the Kent Rotary Club donated $900 for guidance and planning supplies for STEM and to support social and emotional learning. Canyon Ridge Middle School, Project Pizza has forwarded $500 for a garden for food science classes. Covington Elementary, the PTA donated $2,333 for teachers' classroom needs. And Kent Ridge, Chantelaine's Booster Club, donated $1,890 to support the dance team charter bus for state competition. Thank you.
Go Shats.
Nice.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no more discussion, a motion has been made to approve item number 6.14, gifts, donations, and memorials acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion?
I move to approve item number 6.15, the personnel report.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
So I just wanted to point out let's see, what is his title here? I want to make sure I got it right. Ron DeLay over at iGrad. He is a teacher there. He is going to be retiring. This is his second time retiring. And so he retired from up in Alaska, I believe. And so I just wanted to point out, just because he's retired twice, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm sad to see him go, but I'm glad that he'll finally get, hopefully, a real retirement this time.
Appreciate that, Director Cook. We always appreciate our staff, especially in our coming back for our special education, our students, most importantly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, A motion has been made to approve item number 6.15, personnel report. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. I believe, is there additional comments that were received in the beautiful blue bucket? Looks like we do. Our last speaker is Samir Ahmed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
It's actually, Nadeem already spoke on that. That's something similar I'm going to talk. It's really if that Friday can be the early dismissal day, that will be really beneficial for Muslim community. Because it's difficult for them, then they're stepping away and missing the class and then attending the prayer and then going back. So if that happens, that will be really nice. The second option, again, the halal food, if that can be option and for the kids, it will be very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that's all of our comments for this evening. So we are on to item number 7.02, the board reports and discussion. Director Song, if you would like to start us off.
Yeah, I had a really good week this week. Again, just like Superintendent Vela mentioned, we got to go visit the Multicultural Assembly over at Kent Meridian, and just really wanted to highlight the amazing performance that the students there were able to produce and also perform. And then also, just for transparency, just wanted to also acknowledge that I had an opportunity to also meet with our OSPI superintendent, Chris Rakedahl. We had a really fun evening kind of talking about the trajectory of education, where things are heading, and I hope in the near future I get to share some of those outcomes with the rest of the board, but then also with our Kent communities. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Director Song. Director Cook?
Yeah, so I have a few things I wanted to talk about. So I also really enjoyed the Multicultural Assembly over at Kent Meridian. It was a lot of fun. They had I think, a great time. There was some cabbage thrown into the audience, which I was not expecting. And so that was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it next year as well. The IT team, I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to take up too much time, but I just wanted to just really thank them for doing a great job of getting the data cabling done. It is something that is vitally important for our schools so that we can continue to provide an education to our students in the best way possible. And that's all I really have to say about that. So as far as the teachers, this is, our week for thanking them and really bringing them up. And I think they're doing a great job out there. I think all of the schools have some of the best staff in the state, probably in the country or the world. I'm just going to say it out there. But I also am going to be going tomorrow to go volunteer to bring coffee to the staff at my wife and daughter's school. I decided not to go to my other daughter's school because she would be far too embarrassed. And so I took her advice in not going there. But I do like the teachers there as well, obviously. As far as this week, there's an event that I'll be attending, the Founders Day dinner. That's going to and auction, which is going to be on Friday. I'm really looking forward to that. It should be a really good time. That's put on by the Kent Area Council, and so that's the group that is kind of over the parent-teacher associations within the district. And so it'll be a really good time to kind of meet with some people. My wife won an award, which I think is wonderful. They invited me as well separately, which was really kind of them. I was already going, so it was nice to get an invitation as well. As far as this Saturday, the Kent Junior Olympics is going on. And so if anyone can get out there, the 4th and 5th graders would love to see you out there and cheering them on. I know I will be out there cheering them, so it'll be a lot of fun. As far as this past week, I went on Saturday to the Space for All STEM Festival. I got to meet NASA astronaut Jose M. Hernandez. He was a very nice man and said that his daughter was much more famous than him. I didn't know her personally, but apparently she's very popular with the children. So I'm very excited for that. Moving on to the, let's see, high schools right now. So right now the high schools are doing a lot of performances. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in theater and you want to go see some great performances, almost all of the high schools, I think there might be all of them are doing this week. They might continue on next week. And then the last thing that I wanted to cover was that I also went to 5th grade camp last week and had a great time with both Grass Lake and Meridian Elementaries. Had so much fun. I was in a cabin with great kids, had a great time, and I wanted to thank the board here as well as all the staff here that have been working so tirelessly to make sure that our kids are able to go and have a great time at 5th grade camp, kind of get that end of their elementary school time kind of tied together so that they can then move on to middle school next year. I know my daughter's excited, and I know that the rest of the 5th graders are also excited. So thank you very much, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Director Cook. Moving on to Director Clark.
Having recently celebrated Teacher Appreciation Day, I just want to acknowledge a report from curriculum. We are in the midst of a curriculum revision that's well underway in the district, and it's aimed at creating reading materials more appropriately aligned with the students that we serve. And I was really pleased to read the significant increase in literacy scores. And that only comes because of the hard work of teachers. It requires the timing and the assessment and the evaluation and remediation is needed, and it's indicative of a very professional group of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. Vice President Farah.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank the audience for coming and sticking with us today. I also want to thank the staff. Since it's also Teacher Appreciation Week, I also want a special thanks to the teachers. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Vice President Farah. I have a few things to talk about this week. Again, it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I will borrow this from something that I'd heard, and hopefully I somewhat remember it correctly, but it was the idea that, within your head, think of the 5 last Heisman Trophy winners, or can you name the last 5 Golden Glove winners, or maybe the last 5 people who won at Wimbledon. Most of us can't. But if we ask anybody in this room to think about 5 teachers that made an impact on their life, or somebody else within the school that just really made a difference in the life and the person that they became, all of us can name that person, or 5, 10, 15 of them. And so, and I think all of us up here also believe that, or truly wouldn't be here. So thank you very much to our teachers, and we honor you during this Teacher Appreciation Week and every week. I also would like to give a shout out to our nurses. Thank you very much. We know that we continue to ask a lot and continuing, and thank you for our nurses for continuing to give. I also encourage people to look at all the activities that there are around Asian Pacific Heritage Month. So many within our community, and please find something to be able to jump into and learn about. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to be part of meetings around our capital projects, learning about the many things going on, and I'm just so proud of the work that we're doing to keep up the buildings. We got some ones that are a little bit long in the tooth, but we're making them work, and through every single day, just the tireless work of making sure that we, there's just so much to keep track of and do. And so thank you for the work that was displayed in that meeting. And then I know how much work that is done by so many to make them all happen. Also had the opportunity to visit iGrad and with Vice President Farah, and also see the plans for the new project, and excited to see where that goes. Had a lot of time to be able to speak with some students and some of the teachers, and I'm just excited to see what the next steps are on that. Thank you to all of the board members for our board policy work session. They are not glamorous, but also so very necessary. And so thank you very much for all of that. Our policies are so vital to what we do. And so I appreciate the time that goes into that. This next week, I'm going to do a shout out for Northwood is hosting tonight the first of the year's Fairwood Community Night Market. And so thank you very much to Northwood for being the location for that. And I'm hoping if we get out of here in time, I can catch the very tail end of that. This week, I will also be going to middle school football. So it has been since I was in middle school last that I think I've seen a middle school football game. And so I look forward to seeing that. And then I will be going to Mean Girls, Kent Ridge. Actually, I'll be seeing double dose of Mean Girls as one of our community, our close school districts is also going to be doing Mean Girls, and so we get to see the battle of the Mean Girls, maybe, I don't know. And then I just want to end as I end all of my board reports saying thank you to our students. This is why we do it. Our focus is on you. We appreciate you for being here. Thank you to those of you who showed up in our audience today. Thank you for those parents that support them every day. We hear you and we appreciate you. And that concludes my board report. It is 7:24, and I will adjourn this meeting and wish you all a good evening.